Why, hello, learning nerds. Before we begin today's show, I want to thank our awesome sponsors, with first giving a shout out to Idle Courses Academy. Idle Academy is the first and only authorized vocational school for instructional design and online learning. It includes a comprehensive hands-on curriculum with certifications, credentials, expert coaches, mentors, a community of practice, paid experience opportunities, industry-preferred software access, live events, and ongoing updates. Your entire instructional design career is neatly packaged behind a single login for just $88 a month. Check out all the details at idlecourses.com/academy, and you can use my code Luke for $88 off the yearly membership. Okay, now let's start the show. Hello, learning nerds, and welcome on in to the nerdiest podcast you're going to hear today. My name is Dr. Luke Hobson. I'm a senior instructional designer, author, blogger, podcaster, and instructor. And my purpose is to help you along your instructional design journey. Whether you're an aspiring instructional designer or you're a designer looking to move over into a senior type of role, and of course, for anyone else who just wants to be able to learn a little bit more about designing learning experiences, well, I'm here for all of you. And of course, you can find all my information over at drlukehobson.com. You might have noticed by now, and hopefully there is a clear and distinct notice about this, but hopefully I sound a little bit clearer and better for all of you listening right now at home. I finally decided to suck it up and to go and to purchase a new microphone. I have been delaying this for quite some time because I love my little ATR 2100 by Audio-Technica. It has served me well for years, and it was a microphone I purchased on Amazon for like $49 back in maybe 2016 or so. It was a long time ago. It has served me well, but it is time for a new update. And because of that, well, now I sound like this. I purchased a Shure microphone for a recommendation from one of my students. And yeah, it sounds pretty darn good. So hey, hopefully it sounds good for you as well. For this episode, there's no guest. It's just me, you, talking about instructional design. And today, I want to talk about a topic that keeps on coming into my inbox about every other day or so. I get an email, and it goes something basically along these lines. And it says, Luke, I have been thinking about becoming an instructional designer. However, from talking with my network and with other people about the field, what I'm hearing right now is that it's really competitive. Do you think the market is too saturated? Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. And this is a great question, and I thought it definitely deserved an entire episode to be able to unpack this and to really give you the clear and definitive answer of, is the market too saturated? Well, yes and no. See, the clear answer that all of you are hoping for. But no, let me talk about this a little bit more and explain a bit about what I have been seeing from talking with people within my network, from doing research, from observing different forms of trends. Let me piece together for you everything that I can try to put together and to hopefully give you a bit of a clearer sense about where are we going as a field and what's currently happening out there today. So the number one tip that anyone trying to be able to change going from one job market into another is that they know to go and talk with someone who is currently working in that field and basically have a conversation with them to ask about how they got to where they are today, what's something that they wish they knew about beforehand, and things like that. And what you are hearing, or I'm going to say what you probably have heard of if you have already done this at this point in time from talking with a designer, is that they mentioned about how they came into this field by quote unquote accident. They led initiatives at work. They hosted trainings. They put together resources and guides and documentation. And then all of a sudden, one thing led to another, and now they have a title of instructional designer. They never planned on this. They never wanted to become an instructional designer. This just is where their career took them. Now, the phrase accidental instructional designer is incredibly popular and very common among the instructional design space and the learning and development community. Cami Bean actually wrote an entire book about this very topic of the accidental instructional designer. The thing is, though, is that instructional design, the learning and development space, whatever you want to be able to say about our entire field, it has changed. And it's changed recently. And of course, as you can probably guess, this is without a doubt because of the pandemic. The world was aware of who we are and what is it that we do because of remote learning, learning, online learning, emergency learning, all of these different things. Put it all together, the spotlight was on instructional design more than ever before. With all of this attention, of course, will increase supply and demand for instructional designers. And it wasn't too long until companies that were like some of the biggest organizations I can think of, Apple, Google, Tesla, Twitter, Amazon, Spotify, you name it, instructional designers everywhere. We've been around for higher education for quite some time too, but seeing that the Denver Broncos hired an instructional designer, and then the Portland Trail Blazers, and then there was a UK football club that hired an instructional designer, all of that was like, whoa, this has changed. Like, we are going in a different direction because of this. And because of this supply and demand, I feel that we are not going to be hearing about the accidental instructional designer anymore. And instead, we are currently in a new age that I am just going to call the intentional instructional designer. This reminds me actually of my instructional design journey. As many of you know, I started to try to become an instructional designer back in 2013, so almost 10 years ago here. We're talking about instructional design. When I first heard about instructional design, I did the thing that I'm going to assume that many of you have done as well, where I thought about going back to school. So here I am on Google searching for instructional design degrees, and from looking at all the things out there, there were a whopping two instructional design degrees that I could potentially qualify for, and neither of them were the right fit. And how many things out there existed beyond degrees at that point in time when it came to books and resources and professional development opportunities and courses and anything else like that? They really didn't exist. They were far and few between. And yes, by all means, there absolutely were those resources that they did exist, but nowhere near what they are today. Just for a second, take out your phone and Google instructional design degrees. You will see 8 advertisements for degrees before you actually get to the first organic post on Google. And that is wild to me. It is mind-boggling to hear how much our field has grown over just the last 3 years. And of course, this is not just only about instructional design degrees. When thinking about, like I was just saying, for courses, books, trainings, webinars, other different forms of professional development opportunities, these now, they're everywhere. And it's insane to see how many organizations are offering them, how many individuals are offering them. I mean, even thinking about some of the own products that I have created, where, as many of you know, I have my own form of 7-week instructional design fundamentals course called Instructional Design Institute. I created courses about backward design, about collaborating with subject matter experts, and about a couple of other different forms of topics. And that still, to me, is wild that people have taken them. It still is just like, wow, this is a thing that so many people want to learn about instructional design, that there's now this opportunity for coaching and for all of this different type of innovative ideas and entrepreneurship even inside of this instructional design space. And that really did not exist 10 years ago. Now, of course, let me be very, very, very clear as soon as I, of course, just mentioned about making a bold statement of how this is all new and innovative. Our field has been around for forever, just to be very clear. Instructional design is not new. Learning and development is not new. It has been around for decades. But this attention, this new form of supply and demand, the job market, it has undoubtedly changed within the last couple of years. So if there are all these new opportunities and resources and degrees and professional development opportunities and everything else, well, then what does that mean? It means that now the job market is more educated. Applicants are now more qualified, and you're noticing different forms of job postings are asking for different types of qualifications that maybe they would not have posted a couple of years ago. So when I think about people who are just hearing about instructional design like right now, today, and they're saying, well, wait a second, I was just interviewing so-and-so, and they mentioned about what their qualifications were and their credentials and how they got into the field. Well, I have the same background. Why can't I do that? And it's because that things have changed. So it's no longer just about how, and of course, there are outliers. There always will be outliers. Some people will still become accidental instructional designers in 2023. I'm positive that will still happen. However, the majority is not. And now hiring managers are seeking more from their applicants. And in response, applicants are doing more to be on top of the latest with trends and research development and everything else. So with all of that said, my question for you, and thinking about yourself as an individual and looking at your resume, your cover letter, and all the other things that you have already done so far, my question for you is, what makes you stand out from the crowd? If the crowd has changed and now everyone else is coming in with this whole new level of a playing field, well, then you need to take that one step further. And that could very well be labeled as unfair or anything else, and I totally get that, but it's true. So what is going to make you stand out from the crowd? And my recommendation for you is to have an incredible, polished portfolio. When I hired for an instructional designer about a year and change ago, we received a ton of applicants. So here I am, just to give you a perspective of the hiring manager, and I am scrolling through page after page after page. And it really was like 100 pages of all the different things I had to go through. And from that, what I was looking for was just something to stand out, something to pop, something to catch my attention to say, what is that? I have more questions about that. I want to talk to that person to learn more. And the people who had incredible portfolios, those were the people where I was having these different forms of interests and emotions. It was those people who then I reached out to say, tell me more. What is this? I'd love to learn more about what you did here and everything else like that. Now, why does this catch the attention of somebody? And I think a fair question to ask about, is this a requirement? And required is a strong word, but 100% absolutely, positively, I cannot recommend enough for you to create a portfolio and to have something stellar with just at least 3 forms of learning artifacts, we can call them that, whatever you have actually done to put together inside of here to really sell your abilities and talk about what makes you different. Because of course, the hiring manager is then going to look about this, think about their current team, their organization, their goals, and then trying to see a world where what you can bring to the table is going to help to accelerate everything like that. So what is in a portfolio is probably the next question you're going to be asking me. If you go to one of my latest blog posts called So You Want to Become an Instructional Designer, I outline for you every single step of what should be in a portfolio. And it's 108 pages in total to give you as much information as humanly possible about how to become an instructional designer in 2023, soon to be 2024, which is absolutely insane. Time does not make any sense. But to give you a kind of a quick summary of a portfolio, please don't just include screenshots and then that's it. That is the number one culprit I'll see from people, because I'll have this conversation with them and I'll say, do you have a portfolio? They say yes. I'm like, awesome, share with me the portfolio. And then what I essentially see is that it is something that looks great, but there is no explanation. There's no story. I don't know what you did. I can make an educated guess about how you physically built using a tool to create the thing, but I don't know anything as far as for what was the goal you were hoping for, what was the problem you were trying to solve with training and with education. Give me a bit more about the background about everything. Tell me more about the stakeholders. Tell me more about the timeline. Tell me about your role on the project, because usually, as instructional designers, we work on a team. So trying to be able to see more about that collaboration perspective, trying to think about it as well too, if you're juggling all these things, the project management perspective, because I'm assuming you have a bunch already going on. So having that as well is only going to help. And then tell me more about your philosophies on learning. What forms of learning strategies did you use inside of the design? How you physically built the thing? And then talking about the evaluation at the end. Lessons learned, how did you conduct the research to make sure it was effective, things like that. If you put together a story with your different types of artifacts and the hiring manager can clearly see that, that is going to help you immensely, as opposed to having a screenshot of Canva and then we're like, why? Okay, I guess, this is going to be much more impactful to share about what skills you can bring to the team and how you can help with everything. Now, if you want to learn more about how to get experience to do this, as far as for where do you talk with people for building out these projects, anything like that, once again, that blog post is going to have more information. I have a few YouTube videos about it as well. But really, the easiest thing I can tell you about is this sharing about your journey and how you want to be able to design more, as far as for designing online learning experiences or in-person learning experiences. We definitely do both. And you will be shocked to hear how many people have always thought about trying to put together something like a training or a course, and they just didn't know how. I know that one of the things that as soon as I started to mention to others that I create online courses, keeping it obviously very simple, do more within the job, but I wanted to just make it very simple when talking with the general public about what it is that I do. And I would hear from people who were coming out of the woodwork of, I've written this book. It's always been my dream to lead a training that goes with my book, or I've always wanted to be able to teach people about how to do X. And you're like, oh, yeah, I can help you. And usually friends, family, colleagues, I mean, it's not like trying to be able to do this massive uplift with a freelance project and trying to be able to establish your LLC and do all of these things, which of course you can do if you want to go down the freelance path and try to be able to have all of this in play. 100%, you absolutely can. But if the purpose is designing more with your portfolio, that to me is different. That is saying something of, I want to get this thing done now, do it right, and not have to wait X amount of months until I am working on this project and whatever. So that is a whole different conversation for everything. But if you want to be able to create something small and a quick win for a friend or a family member or a peer, and you can incorporate that into the portfolio, that is an easy win for everybody involved, and you can go from there. And if you do collaborate with someone to create some form of a learning product, these become your stories. They become your examples for when you go through this interviewing process and the hiring manager asks you to name a specific time that XYZ happened, or how did you overcome a challenge, or whatever it's going to be. Here you go. Here is your real life example about what you did, and you're going to be able to sell that and talking about your past experiences. So with a killer portfolio in hand, and now you have a little bit more experience under your belt and things are going well, then now is the time to really be able to drum up more attention for what you're trying to be able to do and to really keep on building that network. Ideally, you have been building the network all along for everything, But of course, now more than ever, if we're trying to be able to land a new position, if you can have someone who can share with you more about the position ahead of time, give you that form of an insider secret about things, and then on top of that, to be able to recommend you for the position and to really help you with those connections too, that is fantastic. And the most you can try to be able to do is going to be going through with that. And the more of it you can do that, the better your chances are going to be. I will say, though, that sometimes, even with both of those things and perhaps all the other different forms of educational material that you've been diving into, of courses and books and trainings and everything else, sometimes things still don't happen. And to put it bluntly, it sucks. It's kind of heartbreaking when you put in so much time, energy, and effort, and it still doesn't pan out. And I know what happens from there, from speaking about this from personal experience with you, is that you go into this downward spiral of, what did I do wrong? What happened? Why am I not good enough? And you have all these different thoughts in your head. And sometimes it is the oddest things that you will never, ever, ever envision, but it is what it is. And sometimes the organization may very well find that magical unicorn that they are looking for, and the person just checks every box. It is also possible, or an internal person within the organization was the best fit because they already had this prior levels of knowledge. And on top of that, they did X, Y, and Z. And that's also possible too. But if it helps you at all, it is impossible to predict every single path. And one example I can share with you is that I applied for an instructional designer position a couple of years ago. And of course, I had the feeling where I'm like, I'm perfect for the job. I meet every qualification. I have all this experience. I was like, yeah, this is it. I'm going to be able to go and to do this. Applied for the job. I had a interview. The interview went great. I remember I left there feeling fantastic. And I was like, this is going to happen. Like, I cannot wait to work here. And then silence, dead silence for 4 months. Reach back out to the person multiple times and just nothing. And of course, all the while, I'm overanalyzing everything where I'm like, what did I do wrong? Like, did I say something weird? Was my body language? I was like, what did I do? Like, I really felt like I had a shot here. Come to find out, almost, I want to say like 6 months later, I get an email. And the email started off apologizing. I was like, what happened? And this person was just like, Luke, I'm so sorry. I'm just realizing this now, but the hiring manager who you were supposed to interview next, they had they were in a car accident. And because of that, we called off the search and we were just going to delay everything until it's appropriate and the time is right. And we're putting the health of this person first and foremost. And it's like, oh, of course, naturally. But the thing and why I was receiving this months later is that they said, you were supposed to receive an email about this and you never did. And this person who was emailing me, they just caught it somehow from going back through the backlogs that I never somehow got a communication. So they reached back out and they wanted to close that loop. And of course, I was thankful, obviously, but I was just like, what in what world does this happen? Like, what are the chances of this happening? And they're so slim, they were so small. And at the time too, once again, this is a while back. This is when instructional design jobs were not everywhere. So that's why I was also extremely shocked when I did not hear back with this niche world that we live in. And then anyway, but the point was that something happened. I had no idea. And there are plenty of other instances that I've heard from many of you who reach out to me who have said some things where it's just like, that's unbelievable. I can't believe this really happened to you because something so crazy came about, and that's reality. And that's the way that the world is sometimes. One other tip that I want to be able to share with you, well, I guess a few tips are about to get rolled into this one. Number one, the LinkedIn section for a LinkedIn job where it says how many applicants have applied to that job, that number is a lie. And it's actually how many people have viewed the job, saved the job, but to have gone and to have physically applied to the job it is not as many as you think. And I know that when you see a job posting, and you can do this as an experiment, go and look for the next Amazon instructional design job posting, by the way. That number is going to skyrocket in a day from 0 to 500 really quickly. And it's because we all have on the back end these different job alerts saved for different organizations, and Amazon always gets floated to the top when you're looking for an instructional design job because it's one of the largest organizations. So it's not that surprising. But because of that, that's really why this keeps on happening. And the more that people share jobs within their network, the more attention that brings to the job posting too, naturally, which makes sense. So more people click on it. So do not be dismayed by how many people are applying to the job. It's probably not as many as you think. Now, the second part of this, by the way, is that you should be intentional with the jobs you are applying for. Now, I know what you're saying, where it's just like, well, I've been doing this so much, I'm feeling desperate, so I'm applying for kind of like everything. And you have to do what you have to do. Don't get me wrong here. Where this piece of recommendation is coming from, though, is that I have read some posts from people who have said that they have applied for like 1,000 jobs within 90 days, and they haven't heard back yet. And it's like, all right, well then something's wrong. 1,000, something's off, and I don't know what or where or what exactly it is. But instead, I would be more methodical and intentional about where you are applying for, because that way you can use your connections, you can use your network, you can do research on Glassdoor to learn more about the organization and try to be able to plan ahead of time for perhaps what they're going to be asking you about inside of an interview, so you can have a little bit more of the opportunities to be able to practice answering those questions. Glassdoor, by the way, if you do not use it, a fantastic website that does give the options for both applicants and the employees to be able to leave reviews about the organization, but also talk about the interviewing process. And this is interesting. Of course, it's not going to be 100% correct every single time, because different people interview differently, different departments and different divisions within organizations. So obviously, take that with a grain of salt. However, if you see somewhere in there that there's an instructional design interview process and it outlines having to go through 6 rounds of interviews and something insane like that, that is not the place for you. At most, it should take 3 interviews. 1 with a phone screening, 1 with the team, and then 1 with the director of that team. You can change those in various orders. For some people, the hiring manager goes second, and then the team is third, and then there's a final one in the whatever. But if it goes beyond that, something's up. Either they don't know what they're looking for, which is kind of my best guess, is that they kind of put out a wide net of people, and now they have all these different variously talented people, and they don't know who to kind of be able to go through. Or the timeline has changed, or something else has just come about. Either way, 6 rounds of interviews, that's too much. That is for like a senior level person. That's not an instructional designer. And the last tip to share with you, and to hopefully put a bow on this entire conversation, is if you have not yet listened to my episode with Sarah Canistra a couple of episodes ago, go and listen to her episode, because she talked about some great tips, not just one thing, but one thing really stood out in my mind, and she's kind of built a brand around this within the learning and development community, is that you do not need to just apply for the title of instructional designer. There are many affiliated job titles with instructional design that are not specifically instructional designer. My first job at MIT when I came over here, despite the fact that the job posting, in my opinion, read as instructional designer, which is why I applied for it in the first place, my official title was program manager. And I remember how much that confused not just me as the guy applying, but also when I would tell people that I'm a PM, and everyone's just like, but I thought you were an instructional designer. I'm like, yeah, I am. But the reason for why the title is what it is that once the programs I have been creating and designing are all finally done and all set and good to go, I manage those. I'm making sure that they are staffed properly, that everything is up and running, that support is okay. I'm in contact with marketing to be able to help with sales. I'm in contact with engineering about the latest for product updates and everything from the learning platform and whatnot. So the title did technically make sense. However, instructional design was a majority of a job. So if I had only searched for instructional design positions, I could have easily looked at that and said, that's not for me. That's not an instructional designer. But having gone through more of the job description, I was like, wait a second. I think I want to apply for this and to see what happens. And, that's kind of taking me to where I'm at today with my career. But now my title has morphed into senior instructional designer and program manager. So the program manager title followed me, and now I just have it with the senior ID title. So if you see something that talks about being a technologist, a strategist, a developer, anything along those lines, read the fine lines and see what they're asking for, because entirely possible they mean instructional designer and instead it's learning manager or it's design specialist, or I've seen a million different types of odd postings. That's a whole conversation for another day of talking about job titles and why in the heck we can't figure out what to call ourselves anymore. But you know what? Overall, read the posting and then make the decision if that's right for you. Then communicate with your network, have a stellar portfolio, be ready, make sure that you are practicing interviewing, having everything down pat. And that's what's going to help you to the best succeed, to the very best I possibly can give you for a tip inside of this podcast episode. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. That's the most information I can give for you right here, right now. I could easily go way more into a variety of those different forms of topics, but hey, I hope this conversation did help you out a little bit. If it did, be sure to leave this show a 5-star rating wherever you are listening: Google, Apple, Spotify, or any other different form of podcast platform. If you want to follow along with me to see what I'm up to, connect with me over on LinkedIn. I'm extremely active on over there. And of course, you can go over to drlukehobson.com. You can sign up for my email list. You'll be the very first to hear about what I have going on inside of our instructional design space. And that, my learning nerds, that is all I have for you today. Stay nerdy out there, and I'll talk to you next time.